You're not aiming too high. You're aiming too low. And that's exactly why you're exhausted, burnt out, and still broke. Mediocre goals attract maximum competition. Think about it. Everyone wants the safe job, the reasonable salary, the realistic dream. And because everyone wants it, you're fighting against millions for scraps. Get rich or die trying. That's not just a phrase, it's a mathematical truth about success. The top of the mountain is less crowded than the base. The most unrealistic goals have the least competition. But here's what nobody tells you about the journey to extraordinary wealth. It doesn't look like what you think. It looks like failure, repeated failure. Until suddenly it doesn't. Today, I'm going to expose the trap that keeps 99% of people fighting for mediocre outcomes, while the 1% quietly takes everything. And I'll show you the pattern that separates those who make it from those who quit right before the breakthrough. The mediocrity trap. Here's a truth that will make you uncomfortable. You've been lied to your entire life about what's realistic. Your parents told you to get a stable job. Your teachers told you to be practical. Your friends told you to play it safe. And you believed them. The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man. But here's what they didn't tell you. The so-called realistic path is actually the most competitive, most exhausting, most brutal path you could possibly choose. Think about it. How many people are competing for that middle management position? Thousands. How many are competing to build a billion-dollar company? Maybe a dozen in your entire industry. The safe path is the most dangerous path. When you aim for mediocre, you're swimming in a pool of millions. When you aim for extraordinary, the competition thins out dramatically. 99% of people are convinced they are incapable of achieving great things. So they all crowd into the same narrow lane, fighting each other for the same limited resources. But what if the crowded lane is the trap? What if playing small is actually playing on hard mode? The 80% plateau. Let me tell you something about the workforce that no one wants to admit. 80% of people work just hard enough not to get fired. They hit a plateau early in their careers and never improve again. They learn just enough to be competent, and then they coast. Their growth chart looks like a heartbeat that flatlines. But here's what separates the top 10%. They're constantly improving, every single day. While everyone else is coasting, they're compounding. And compounding is the most powerful force in the universe. If you get 1% better every day for a year, you're 37 times better by the end. But if you decline by 1%, you're almost at zero. Improve or decline. There is no staying the same. The moment you stop growing, you start dying. The plateau isn't neutral territory. It's slow death disguised as stability. Now, if this is hitting close to home, if you recognize yourself in that 80%, hit like and subscribe to keep breaking free from these patterns, because what comes next is even more important. The plateau doesn't just affect your skills. It affects your entire relationship with reality itself. The invisible work. Here's the pattern that nobody tells you about success, and I mean nobody. Work, work, work. No results, but you're a little bit better. Work, work, work. No results, but you're a little bit better. Work, work, work. No results, but you're a little bit better, and then, boom, just got paid. And everyone calls it overnight success. It takes 20 years to make an overnight success. They see the explosion, not the pressure building. They see the harvest, not the years of planting. They see the breakthrough, not the 1,000 failures that preceded it. Your growth is happening internally long before it shows up externally. You're building pressure inside a container and the world can't see it, but you can feel it. That frustration you feel when you're working hard and seeing nothing. That's not failure. That's the pressure building before the explosion. The problem is, most people release the pressure too early. They quit. They give up. They tell themselves the story that it wasn't meant to be. But the ones who make it, they understand that invisible work is still work. They trust the process even when there's no visible evidence. The quitting zone. People quit right before they get what they've always wanted. Read that again. They quit right before the breakthrough. Inches from glory, they walk away. Why does this happen? because the resistance is highest right before the transformation. It's like pushing a boulder up a mountain. The steepest part is always right before the summit, darkest before the dawn. Your brain is wired to interpret maximum resistance as a signal to stop. But what if it's actually a signal that you're close? Think about it. If breaking through were easy, everyone would do it. The difficulty is the filter. The struggle is the selection process. The universe is testing whether you want it badly enough to push through the final barrier. Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. Edison knew this. He failed over 10,000 times before inventing the light bulb, but he understood something that most people don't. Each failure was just bringing him closer. Each no was making room for the yes. This brings us to something even more crucial about how you interpret your struggles. Story or excuse. Your hardships will either be the reason you don't make it, or the story you tell when you do make it. Same events, completely different meaning. The only difference is what you do with them. Every successful person you admire has a story of struggle. Oprah was fired from her first television job. Steve Jobs was kicked out of his own company. J.K. Rowling was a broke single mother on welfare. Their failures became the foundation of their legend. But here's what most people miss. They didn't succeed despite their hardships. They succeeded because of how they used them. Pain can make you bitter or better. Struggle can break you or build you. Failure can define you or refine you. Victim or victor, the choice is yours. Right now, you're accumulating material for your story. Every rejection, every failure, every sleepless night. Either this becomes the excuse you tell yourself for why you couldn't make it, or it becomes the inspiring backstory you share when you've already made it. You're living your origin story right now. What kind of hero are you writing? Stack the days. Forget motivation, forget inspiration, forget waiting until you feel ready. Just keep stacking days. Success is just stacked days that compound over time. One day of work doesn't look like much. Neither does 2, or 10, or 100. But 1,000 days of consistent effort. That's where magic happens. The problem is, your brain can't visualize compound growth. It only sees the immediate input and the immediate output. You work hard today and you expect results today. The compound effect is the principle of reaping huge rewards from a series of small, smart choices. But that's not how wealth works. That's not how success works. That's not how anything meaningful works. You're not building a day, you're building a dynasty, brick by brick, day by day. Stack the days. Stop measuring your progress by how you feel today. Start measuring it by how many days you've shown up. The streak matters more than the intensity. Consistency beats intensity every single time. And speaking of what really builds wealth, there's a mental shift that changes everything. The wealth gap. Rich people don't think about money the way you do. And that mental gap is exactly why they're rich and you're not. Your programming is keeping you poor. You think about money as something to save. They think about money as something to deploy. You think about security. They think about opportunity. You see risk. They see calculated investment. 1. Poor mindset asks how to save money. 2. Rich mindset asks how to make more. 3. Poor mindset fears loss. 4. Rich mindset calculates upside. These aren't just different strategies. These are completely different operating systems. And here's the uncomfortable truth. You inherited your money beliefs from people who weren't wealthy. Your parents, bless their hearts, passed down programming that was designed for survival, not abundance. The rich don't work for money, money works for them. Until you reprogram these core beliefs, you'll keep making decisions that sabotage your wealth. You'll keep playing small because playing big feels dangerous to your nervous system. But the danger isn't in aiming high. The danger is in staying comfortable. Realistic is fatal. Being realistic is the most commonly traveled road to mediocrity. Fatal. When someone tells you to be realistic, what they're really saying is, limit yourself to what I can imagine for you. But their imagination is constrained by their own limitations. Their realistic is their cage, and they want you to climb in with them. Their limit's not yours. Think about every breakthrough in human history. Flight was unrealistic. The internet was unrealistic. Going to the moon was unrealistic. All progress is made by unreasonable people. The people who change the world are the ones who ignored what was considered possible. They didn't listen when they were told to be practical. They didn't scale down their dreams to fit other people's expectations. The size of your goals determines the size of your life. Small goals create small lives. Massive goals, even if you fall short, create extraordinary lives. Aim for 10 million and hit 2 million, you're still a millionaire. Aim for 100,000 and hit it. You're exactly where everyone else is. But there's something even more important about big goals that most people miss entirely. Less competition. Here's the paradox that changes everything. The bigger your goal, the less competition you have. The top of the mountain is empty. Everyone is fighting for space at the base. Millions compete for average jobs. Thousands compete for good jobs. Hundreds compete for great opportunities. And maybe a handful compete for extraordinary outcomes. Higher goal, less competition. Why? Because most people have convinced themselves they can't achieve greatness. They've disqualified themselves before the race even started. They're not even trying because they believe it's not for people like them. The level of competition is fiercest for realistic goals, making them the most time and energy consuming. So while everyone's exhausting themselves fighting for mediocre outcomes, the truly ambitious face less resistance. Not because it's easier to achieve extraordinary things, but because fewer people even attempt them. The unrealistic path has the least traffic. This is the great secret of wealth. You're not crazy for wanting more. You're strategic. Die trying. Get rich or die trying isn't about recklessness. It's about commitment. It's about burning the boats. It's about deciding that mediocrity is simply not an option for your one precious life. There is no plan B, because plan B distracts from plan A. Most people keep an escape route, a safety net, a backup plan, and that very safety net is what prevents them from fully committing. When you know you can go back to average, you will. Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back. But when average is no longer an option, when you've decided that you will figure it out no matter what, that's when everything changes. Commit or quit. There's no in-between. You're either all in or you're just pretending, and pretending is exhausting. Pretending is what burns people out. True commitment is actually energizing because you're no longer fighting yourself. Make the decision that you will succeed or you will learn. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of the path. The only real failure is giving up. Die trying means you never stop, you never quit, you never accept less than what you're capable of. Here's what I need you to understand. The trap isn't aiming too high. The trap is aiming too low. Shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you'll land among the stars. 99% of people will watch this video and go back to their comfortable, crowded, competitive pursuit of mediocrity. They'll keep working just hard enough not to get fired. They'll keep aiming for goals that feel safe. They'll keep quitting right before the breakthrough. But you're different. You're still here. You understand now that the invisible work counts, that stacking days creates dynasties, that your hardships are becoming your story, not your excuse. Stack the days. Remember the pattern. Work, work, work. No results, but you're better. Work, work, work. No results, but you're better. And then boom, just got paid. If you made it this far, comment stacking days if you're done playing small. Your mind is either programmed for wealth or poverty. Now you know how to reprogram it. If this video exposed your limiting beliefs, subscribe. There's more uncomfortable truth where this came from.